Dear learners, welcome to this course on Introduction to NGO Management. This is the first session and I am your instructor, Professor Neeti Agarwal, along with my colleague, Professor Nayantara Padi. So in this case, we'll be discussing different aspects of NGOs and the how to start the NGO, how to build an NGO, how to form an NGO, what are the strategies related to NGOs, what is the environment related to NGOs, what are the communication modules related to NGOs. So all these things we would be covering in this course, and this is the first session where we would be starting with the concept of NGOs. When we talk about NGOs, the NGOs basically means non-governmental organizations. So if you see the whole concept, and if you see this picture, a small picture, and you must be witnessing many issues, many things, and in the present crisis situation, you must be witnessing, hearing the news on television, reading newspapers. You must be coming across many voluntary organizations who have been working tirelessly to combat this crisis. So you see that we have a very, very rich history. Since ages in our country. Dhan is one of the major concepts of voluntary services. Dhan means giving something, giving selflessly. That is one of the important concepts. So you can see in this picture that some kind of books and some kind of material related to children is being distributed to the children of the rag pickers, basically, who are very underprivileged, and in this situation they don't have the access to the means to education. So this is one concept. So when we start with the history of the civil society, we'll just go back to the olden times where you would find that in lot of mythological characters also we find that people are used to doing dhan and seva. That means they're used to giving, and they are used to giving their selfless service as well. And you must have heard the name of Danveer Karn. So we always call him Danveer because he was very, very popular. He had the habit of giving without even asking for the justification of particular amount he used to give to the people or to the society. So civil society has been existing in our country since ages. We have langars, we have the community services in the villages, we have all these are forms of civil society where dhan and seva, all these selfless service is continuing. Even now, if you see, there are self-help groups, there are NGOs who are making masks for the underprivileged, and they are providing those masks to them. This is again a kind of social service. So this is what we need to discuss in the concept of NGOs. Now coming to the other part. Now if you see this example, this is one of the very good examples which I could find on the internet, and you see this logo. It is known as Dhan Utsav, and it usually happens from October 2nd to October 8th every year, and it was started in 2009 in Chennai. Now it is a massive movement kind of a thing which occurs. Earlier it was known as Joy of Giving Week. The whole week is celebrated as the Dhan Utsav. Utsav means celebrations. So it is the whole week is celebrated for joy of giving. That means you get the joy by giving without any expectation, without any reason. So that is what this concept was based on, and still till date it is happening every year, and this is a festival of giving, and it was started in 2009, and it focuses, basically the focus of this festival is to encourage the individuals, the corporates, the civil societies, all the organizations to participate in it and involve in certain activities of giving and helping. Now this is the present day concept. As I was discussing, in the earlier days also such kind of things used to happen. Now there are certain festivals where we are supposed to give or we are supposed to use Dhan as a means for attaining moksha or spiritual salvation. So there was also a concept like this, and it still exists. So this means Dhan is a very pious, Seva is a very pious service to the society. Now the NGOs, they are built on this concept, that is Dhan and Seva. The whole concept is built around this, and this is a very beautiful concept. And while operating an NGO, one needs to be committed towards it. It's not very easy to be a volunteer for something. So this is what the concept of NGO starts with. So coming to the next part, again with the history, voluntary activities have been going on in different fields, many different fields, like culture, like health, like education, like relief measures, etc. Now I'll just give you an example of one of these. In health, you have been seeing, I just gave you an example of making masks, going to the hospitals and providing services to the people. Then you have education for the girl child. That is one of the main concepts which big organizations, big NGOs, they are having it. And of course the relief measures. Recently a flood came in Odisha, and you would have seen that lot of relief measures were taken up by NGOs, the local community service organizations. They may be formal, they may be informal. That doesn't make a difference. The difference is that what kind of services they provide to the masses or to the society for the benefit of the society. So this is what is existing since ages, and it is continuing. The beauty of the whole concept is that it is still continuing, and it is becoming more and more prevalent. As of now, since the data of 2015, we have around 3.2 million NGOs, the registered NGOs in our country, in different parts of the country, in different states. So that's a huge sum. The data has not been updated yet, but this is the data available. So there might be more number of NGOs increasing. So the good number of NGOs, they are actually working for the common masses, for the benefit of the society. So this is what is the NGO and how it goes about. Now you see different activities related to NGO. This is one example where again you will see that small children, the ones who do not have the privilege of going to the parks because they don't have time. Most of the time they are busy doing rag picking and other services and cleaning, or garbage collectors who go to different places. The small children are being used by their parents, maybe because of necessity or because of unawareness. There are so many issues related to it. But then in certain NGOs, such kind of activities occur where they are being provided with the facilities like dummy seesaw models, like dummy swings, where they can play with each other, where they can spend time in activities like making puzzles, like singing. So there are many activities happening in different kinds of NGOs. So this activity that this picture shows is related to the children of rag pickers, and they have a special source of playing where a dummy park has been made for them to enjoy and play. So these such kind of activities they happen in NGOs. Now again, going back to the history, we'll start how the formal structure of NGOs started in our country. It all started in the middle of 19th century, where self-help emerged as the main socio-political movement. It may be related to the widows, it may be related to the child marriages, it may be related to the caste issues or the caste discrimination, it may be related to the gender issues. All these socio-political issues, they arose, and many organizations, they came into picture in the middle of the 19th century. See, organizations like Prarthana Samaj, which was set up in 1864, then organization like Arya Samaj, this is one of the most popular movements in our country, which happened in 1875. Then there was National Council for Women in India in 1875, etc. So they emerged in a big way as a massive movement for providing help to the downtrodden, to the distressed, to the underprivileged, to the people who are not able to handle things on their own. So this is what happened in our country. So there are many cases globally. If you see, usually this is the time when the whole concept of NGO started. Coming to the legal status, when we talk about the formalization of NGOs, the legal status of NGOs was given in our country. You can see how advanced we were, and we had a social movement taking up as the legal status, and it happened in 1860 when the Societies Registration Act, that is SRA, was approved to give the legal status to the growing NGO sector. This legislation is still relevant, but it is used with some amendments in respective state governments. We'll see this part in the formation of NGOs. So every state has their own rules and regulations, but the basic norm is based on Societies Registration Act. Now, with government intervention and recognition of NGOs, all this started, the movement started growing in the country, and as of now, we also call it as the third sector. So, Voluntary Action Network of India, VANI, is one of the apex body for voluntary organizations in the country. You can always go to their website and you can see the details about the NGOs, the registered NGOs in our country. Now coming to the most important part, because everything is based on this aspect, that what is a non-governmental organization, or what is an NGO? The formal form globally happened in 1945 when United Nations was established, and the need was felt because to differentiate between the rights of intergovernmental specialized agencies and international private organizations. To demarcate the rights between these two organizations, United Nations gave a concept of NGOs, that is non-governmental organizations. Usually United Nations recognizes all types of private bodies as NGOs. The only condition in this case is that organizations which are to act as NGOs should be independent from the government control. Governmental intervention would be there, but governmental control would not be there. So these are known as non-governmental organization, as the name itself suggests. When we talk about the concept of NGOs, you'll find there are certain parameters on which we discuss the concept of NGOs. Now, the first one is that NGOs are independent of government and business sector. That means they are not dominated by the government or the business or the corporate sector. They have their own entity, they are self-dependent, they are reliable, they are an individual entity in their own sense. The mandate of NGOs basically is to promote and serve the public interest, and of course to advocate these social causes. There is no profit making involved in it. Now I'll come to another concept regarding the profit making thing in our section on formation of NGOs. That has to be clarified, and one needs to understand why we call it as no profit making. The basic concept of NGOs relies on the aspect that it mediates conflicts and it finds solutions for the issues. As I gave you an example earlier, where a movement was started to find the solution for the downtrodden, the distressed, and the underprivileged. So it tries to build into the solutions instead of creating problems. And of course, it mobilizes volunteers and other resources to achieve the objectives of NGOs, of their respective NGOs, because each NGO has its own identity. No two NGOs can be same in nature. This is one thing which is very, very important to note. Other terms for NGOs, there are so many people who use NGOs in different terms. We use NGOs as non-governmental organization. That is the broader concept, and it is a global concept. In our case, we always used it as civil society organization or CSOs. We have charitable organizations. There are a number of charitable organizations in our country. If you go to the northern side and if you go to the southern side, you'll find different kinds of charitable organizations which have been set up by the individuals with their own money. Then it is the grassroots or the community-based organizations, which we also call as CBOs. Then we also call them as voluntary organization or VOs. But the broader concept, globally, it is known as non-governmental organizations or NGOs. Now coming to the definitions of NGOs. Here we would be discussing only a couple of definitions of NGOs, which are the major definitions, because there are so many meanings, inherent meanings involved in NGOs, and NGOs can be of diverse kinds. So there cannot be a very, very specific definition for NGOs. So there is worldwide, if you see, many researchers, experts, the academicians working on this field, they have given the definition in their own understanding, as per their own understanding. But as of now, there is no accepted definition, as it carries different meaning and it relates to certain different circumstances. But we'll just see some of the definitions which are quite relevant, and we can generalize those definitions. The World Bank defines NGOs as private organizations that pursue activities to relieve the suffering, to promote the interests of the poor, protect the environment, provide basic social services, or undertake the community development. So these are the major concepts which usually the NGOs take themselves. Now, if we take the definition given by United Nations, it covers so many aspects. There are so many things involved in it, and it's quite a big definition, but I have broken down into some parts. The definition says it is a non-governmental organization is any non-profit voluntary citizens group which is organized on a local, national or international level. It is task-oriented and is driven by people with a common interest. NGOs perform a variety of service and humanitarian functions. It brings citizen concerns to governments, advocate and monitor policies, and encourage political participation through provision of information. Some are organized around specific issues such as human rights, environment, or health. They provide the analysis and expertise and serve as early warning mechanisms and help monitor and implement international agreements. Now, for example, there are international NGOs like Oxfam, like Red Cross. These NGOs, they work internationally and they deal with the promoting agencies for funding and other aspects internationally. So they coordinate with the international organizations at a different level. There are local NGOs, there are national NGOs. So NGOs can be, we can just say that NGOs are something which are working for the community and with the community. So when we talk about NGOs, we find different characteristics related to NGOs in the definitions which we have just seen. But the Government of India Planning Commission policy, when it was set up in 2007, basically they started, the formal part started then in our country. So they defined them as organizations engaged in public service based on ethical, cultural, social, economical, political, religious, spiritual, philanthropic, or scientific and technological considerations. Now, if you see this definition and if you see the other definitions, you see we have covered almost every aspect of the society and every aspect which exists in the society. So this policy specifically shows that NGOs should have the following characteristics. The first one is that they should be private, that is separate from government. They do not return profits generated to their owners or directors, as they are self-governing, that is, they are not controlled by government. So whatever the funds they raise, that is meant for the upliftment of the society, and they are being used by the NGOs themselves. They are registered organizations or informal groups, so they can be registered or unregistered. That doesn't make much difference, with clearly defined aims and objectives. Now, to sum up, we always say that an NGO is a non-governmental organization which is independent from the government, non-profit voluntary agency, and it is organized on a local, national or international level, and it undertakes a wide variety of services and humanitarian interventions for the benefit of the citizens and their communities. Now, when we talk about NGOs, when we summed up the concept of NGOs, on winding up, I'll just like to add on something, that it is in our culture to give and serve, and that principle has been followed by the NGOs since long, and this principle is still prevalent. And at the time of crisis or some kind of unforeseen circumstances, unfortunate situations, usually the people themselves, they come together and provide the community service. So for that, they do not require a formal kind of an organization. They just do the community services with the inherent nature which has been imbibed, which has been given, the value system which we have from our families, and of course the culture of the rich culture of the country, which automatically follows the concept of Dhan and Seva. Thank you so much.